Ladies and gentlemen, super excited to bring on. You got to bear with me there because your resume is long. The winningest Call of Duty player of all time, 39-time Call of Duty champion, 3-time world champion, won over $1 million competing, and maybe most impressively of all, has retired and is now pivoting to your second career, which is, and you're going to have to educate me on this, but now you're working towards racing cars professionally, and you are Ian Crimsix Porter. Dude, thanks so much for coming on.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And that was pretty good. 38 wins, though. I gotta correct it, or else, I'm gonna be like, oh, we're just adding, one on randomly. So yeah, great to be
Did I
here.
miss anything? I mean, like, and you're pretty young to accomplish all this. So is there anything I missed before we dive into it?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I used to be a Halo pro, but we don't talk about that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that didn't go well either.
All right.
Or that did not go well.
Why not? What did you start first in Call of Duty and then what pivot to
Um,
Halo? Why did you pivot?
Yeah, so I turned pro when I was about 13 years old in Call of Duty 4. This was back when my parents were giving me time limits. They 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 used to unplug the power cord to the Ethernet, the internet, just so to make me go downstairs and have dinner with them. But yeah, those are the glory days,
So, and
way back when.
that was before there was money, before there was all this prestige. So when you say
Yep.
turning pro at 13, what did that
Yeah.
mean back then? Because it means a different thing now.
Yeah. So that's I'll put it this way, right? In like a Twitch chat or just in real life, doesn't matter. Whenever someone asks me like, "Hey, how do I go pro in Call of Duty or in esports?" I the honest answer is I have no idea what to tell them, because I was at the top when, like, some of the best players in the world. I was at that level when it was just a hobby. So I didn't really have to do anything differently to make it a profession. I just randomly started getting paid one day. So
And for the normies listening, when you're saying you're competing at that level, so you're 13, what does that mean in terms of how are you performing in game versus like the random person that signs in?
Um, so we were basically just playing for glory back in the day, and there used to be something called game battles. Rest in peace. They just shut it down this year. But game battles used to have a whole bunch of, I think it was like millions of teams, just for the Call of Duty ladder. I think it was like 1.2 million teams of four. So you run the numbers. That's 4 million players competing, for nothing other than just a virtual record on the leaderboard. So this was something that was further than just the in-game leaderboards. This was, team level competition, all the way from like very beginner level to the highest level. And that's sort of what everyone was doing back in the day. There was no money. I mean, there was some money, but it's not like livable money, So, um, yeah.
What when you're competing, when did you know as a kid? When did you know you were good? Like, was there a moment, or was it just easy for you?
Uh, I would say the moment that I knew I was really good was me and my buddy from high school. Um, Shout out, his name was Lil Poe. Uh, I haven't spoken to that dude, but that's probably some crazy story that he tells people. My doubles partner ended up being the best Call of Duty player that ever lived. But yeah, there was something called a crown, and it was basically like king of the hill for the ladder,
Mhm.
and we held that crown for like 6 months, and I was just like, "Yo, we're really good." And then I sort of got bumped to like, we were still doing that, and then I moved to like a team of like 16 people or something, and we ended up going like 160-0, or it was like an incredibly long win streak. And they would always rotate the players, and then they started putting me in more and more and more, and that's when I sort of knew like, hey, I can keep going with this. And at the same time, video games like Halo 2 were being broadcasted on TBS. So I saw like the highest level of competition in video games on my TV, on cable television. So I was like, you know what? If they can do it, I can probably do it too. Just I'm playing a different title right now, so hopefully it gets bigger.
Now, was this something as a kid, like you'd wake up and you check the leaderboards, or were there's confines around what you had to do? Like, where was your level
Oh,
of obsession at as a kid once you started
I mean,
realizing you were good?
well, this is back, when the pyramids were getting built. We didn't have cell phones that could text that. Like we had a text with the number pad. So it wasn't really something you could check unless you had a computer.
Mhm.
Yeah, but it was a lot of fun. Um, you basically, I would come home from school. I would either have baseball practice, regular typical sports, um, play a little bit before dinner, do my homework after dinner, and that was it. So I basically couldn't play all that much, but it was all about that's sort of where I learned like efficiency and practice and preparation is like, all these other guys had 8 hours a day, you know, like their parents didn't care that they were playing that much. Um, but for me, it was like just time management. I had to maintain above a 3.8 GPA, play sports, and then also try, to be the best in the world at Call of Duty. So it was busy.
So you weren't no lifing it, right? Like you just weren't in the
No.
basement. So for you growing up, did you play other games and have this like quick twitch? Or that's my thing. It's like I can understand if
Yeah.
you're no lifing it and you got there, but you didn't do that. So where
Yeah.
where where did that jump come in for you?
I I don't know, man. It was every single game I was like incredibly good at. I would say that Halo was sort of the one that I wasn't that I actually had to put in the time and effort. Um but Halo is like, completely different beast back then. If you were serious about video games, you played Halo, you didn't play Call of Duty. So
What was
but
the
yeah, then
what was the first game you ever played as a kid? Do you remember what the first game you ever
this is actually a story. Um So the first game I ever played, other than like going over to a friend's house, I should say the first game I ever owned. I went from like Mario Kart at my friend's house on their GameCube or Xbox or PS2. But the first game I actually ever owned was Counter Strike Condition Zero. So I accidentally, keep in mind I was 9, buying a rated M game. The Target employee messed up. I just bought the game because I thought the cover looked cool. But little did I know, I bought the most serious, most hardcore FPS title of all time. So that was like the first ever FPS game I ever played, was the hardest one. And that was maybe that's probably why I could just pick up so many different games. Is because that's sort of where I started at.
And when you were 9, did you have those same restrictions on how much you could play?
Oh yeah, it was even less. I think every single year it went up by 30 minutes.
So
So so back when I was 9, it was like literally 30 minutes, and then it went all the way up to like 3 hours, and then
you could play 30. So that, like, and especially as a parent, so like you were able to play for 30 minutes a day. How was that regulated as a kid? Because it's one thing to be like, okay, you can play 30 minutes, but it sounds like you actually knew, hey, I gotta cut this out.
um well, it wasn't without a little bit, probably a couple of tantrums here and there. But my parents would just watch me like a hawk. I was just doing so much sports at the time that like all year round. Um, I think for every single like summer, I'd do like 3 or 4 different summer camps. So it was like all year round. The only time I was actually really home was where they could watch me,
Mhm.
and then that's when they would be like, "All right, time to get up." You know, they would start the timer on the microwave.
So
So
as a kid, did you know, like I'd say before 13, did you know Like, was gaming your passion, or were you just like, oh, it's fun and I really like to do it? Like, were you obsessed about it at all?
Oh, I was definitely obsessed about it. Um, yeah, if I didn't have that time limit, I would have probably been playing all day, and it wouldn't have been good at all.
Okay.
Uh, yeah.
So I want to fast forward because you said it helped you learn time management, and the time that you did have once you started, once you're on 13, you said you kind of used it as practice. And this is in the early days where you talk about practice wasn't even like thinking about people practicing. How would you approach practice when you're playing Call of Duty?
Um, ooh, that's a pretty generalized question. Because there's individual, and then there's team,
Mhm.
and then there's like low level, and then there's very high level. I would have to basically ask the person to identify, hey, what do you want to do with this? First of all.
But
Um,
I'm talking about you. Like when you would go and like you'd have a half
oh,
hour, like, and you had to squeeze it in after baseball or after dinner. What would you do?
I mean, back then there was not really a goal. I was just having a blast, but then it was just, almost like natural instinct. Like, how can I get better than the previous day? Um, that's probably something that I've always had that other people lack. Is that like you don't have to tell me to do that in anything. That's something that I'll just naturally try to figure out and do on my own. Whether it's what I'm doing now, what I was doing then, or way back. It probably was instilled into me because I started doing sports at such a young age. Uh, so
When you say it was instilled in you, is that something that was taught to you? Something that
yeah, I mean,
do you remember like an example of going?
it was just I would say that it was maybe it was from my parents always pushing me. Maybe it was from the fact that I played so many sports and I was in a constant state of competition. And I was pretty good at all of them, but I wasn't extraordinary at any of them. So that's sort of why, I'd always try to reach that extraordinary um, status, but I just never reached it in sports. So I mean I sort of ended playing sports with sort of like a hey, I failed to do that. Whatever I do next, let's go harder.
When did you shut sports down? Like, did you have to make a decision between what you were doing gaming, or you didn't have that option as a kid?
Um, I would say, well, I was actually getting pretty good at baseball. Um, Again, not the best in my area or anything like that. But I actually sort of it just started my shoulder it started hurting to throw the ball. Um, I don't know what happened or anything like that. I was doing like physical therapy at the time, and that's sort of when gaming I started gaming pretty hard. Was like a actual injury.
What position did you play in baseball?
Played anything like that was sort of my thing was my arm. So I played third base, I played any outfield position, also played catcher.
Okay.
And then they always wanted me to pitch and I'm like, "No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it."
And then did you end up playing for your high school or no?
No.
Okay, like treated like the whole travel
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, it was around when I had the injury was around middle school.
Got it. Okay.
Um yeah, it was like I tried out for a travel team, in batting practice, got 8 or 20 pitches, 8 of them are home runs. But then the moment it came to fielding, like I could field it fine, but then they saw me like wincing every single time I threw the ball. Um, and by the end of the day, it was like, I can't throw. And they're like, yeah.
Was
So I didn't get a call.
What was that conversation like with you and your parents? Did they say, okay, well now you have to go run track or do something else? Or
Oh, they made me do that too. Yeah, that was tough.
when they say they make you, like you knew you didn't have a choice, it's like, okay, Ian, you're running track.
And then I would reply with, okay,
That's it.
all right. Yeah. Yeah, I sort of would just say yes to everything.
Even though you didn't
Um,
want to, like, who wants to run track? Like, there's
I
no way you wanted to run track.
uh, it's not like I don't know. I don't remember how it all went down.
Hmm.
Maybe it was like, hey, if you want to play video games, you have to do this.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't really remember why I did that. I mean, I didn't last long in track either. Like I when I was younger, I was pretty like good with endurance running. Um, and then gaming happened. And that's like the biggest hard counter to running there is. So yeah, by high school when I did track and field, like I don't think I was just okay. Like I did a 400-meter run. I remember ended up puking. I was like in first for a while, and then I ended up in fourth, overshot it a little
Well,
bit.
that's a grown man's run. 400 meters. That's a
Yeah.
dead sprint the whole time.
Yeah. Well, it's I just remember it like thinking like I'm gonna just send it, and then halfway through I'm like, crap, shouldn't have sent it. Oh no, they're passing me, and then finished in fourth. Started puking, laid on the ground just for like a while, and I was like, yeah, the track and field sucks.
so so as your athletic career like started to wrap up, when did you really notice that playing Call of Duty was taking off for you? Like, were you traveling during school, or when did that start to pop off for you?
Again in the game battles ladder,
Mhm.
and then the next year, the following year, they announced like the pro circuit.
In context, how old were you when the pro circuit was?
This was like when I was 13,
Okay.
12 or 13.
Okay, so you're still a kid.
Um, yeah. And luckily I could turn pro before there's that 18-year-old age requirement. So I mean, you fast forward when I turned 18 was the same year that they said, "Hey, you got to be 18 to play." So I got really lucky with that.
So you turned pro when you're 13, and then what did that require of you? Did you have to like drive to regional tournaments, or what did you? It's
No,
all
it
online.
was it, yeah, it was all online. I mean, the finals were on LAN in person.
Okay, where were the finals at?
Um, I believe one was in LA in one year, and then the other one was in Vegas.
Okay.
Um, I didn't go to either because my teammates were just as young as me. So I was 13. Another guy was 13. One was like 11, and then one was like 9. So we were a group of a bunch of little twerps.
But you
But
qualified?
yeah, oh yeah, we qualified, but then my parents said yes, but they have to go with me.
Mhm.
Another guy, no one ever saw what he looked like. Um, Another guy was Canadian, and he was like, "Yeah, my parents said I can go alone." But then the 9-year-old was like, "Can't do it no matter what." So, um, team sort of fell apart, and we didn't go.
Okay.
So,
So that,
and I don't think it was just us. I think for that, the first ever national tournament that they had, like the finals, like the big money tournament, I think there was only 7 teams there. Like, I don't even think they've got 8 teams. They just started inviting everyone, and no one could do it.
and when you say big money, do you remember roughly how much that was back then? What the champions got?
Yeah, back then it was, I think it was 2,500 each for first.
Okay.
And this is like the grand finals of the entire year. This is like the world championship pretty much for the year.
And for
Uh,
context, in the modern age now, what does a world champion win?
Probably 300,000.
Okay. So the
I mean, yeah.
so things have changed a lot. So you're still a kid. When do you really feel like you can give this thing a go, that you weren't like hampered by like school or being a kid? Did you have to graduate high school before your parents kind of let it loose, or what?
Um, so in high school, I was doing summer school. So by senior year,
Why were you doing
I
summer
was,
school in high school if you have a 3.8 to get out early?
yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
okay.
So by like, I remember like junior year, I didn't have to take as many classes as everyone else. And then senior year, I had to take 2 classes, which is like AP Calc, AP Physics.
Jeez,
Um,
what the heck, man?
yeah, first semester we have like, and I grew up in Seattle. We had like the senior project thing
Mhm.
for the first semester, and then second semester, I sort of like I was planning it all. I'm like, all right, second semester is the summertime. That's when tournaments happen. That's the semester where I need to have as little classes as possible. So, and I was also West Coast, so my day would it would be like 7:30 through like 9:30 almost.
Mhm.
But 7:30, or 9:30, that's 12:30 Eastern. And there wasn't that many West Coasters back then, but anyways, I would do those two classes, come home early, and just that was when my time limit was sort of gone. I could just I came home early and just started playing right away.
And then were you able to like pitch your parents on like, here's what's happening? Or did they see, all right, hey, here's a kid who's taking summer classes to put himself in a
Yeah.
position? And like when you said
Well,
AP,
they wanted me to do that too. I was just like, it just sort of aligned.
they wanted you to graduate early?
Well, we'll just do the summers, like just to, so I wasn't just lazy the whole summer.
I mean, let me ask this before you get into the rest of Call of Duty. Did you ever get in trouble as like a kid or high schooler? Or do you have so much going on that you just didn't have an opportunity to get in trouble?
Uh, Not really. Besides 1 year, 1 year I went a little bit rogue.
What does that mean?
Uh, um, that was like the year I was sort of distancing myself away from like everyone. Junior year, and like that was when I started getting like somewhat bullied. And keep in mind, I was like sort of awkward, but I wasn't like I was still strong. I was still fit. This and that's. I mean, what the craziest one was this guy who was, and I said this before in a YouTube video. He was just a prick, and he was drawing on people's faces with a Sharpie in the middle of one of the classes, and started going after me. It wasn't just me he was going after. He was going after a bunch of people. Um, and again, it's like light. This is like light bullying. But the moment he stuck the Sharpie in my mouth and I tasted it, oh, that was when I just immediately turned around and just swung on him. Um, so imagine that scene of me and him walking down the hallway. His face is all bruised and bloodied, and then my face is all like I almost look tribal with the amount of like Sharpie marks on my face. So I can just imagine like how that looked like, just two guys getting escorted down the hall. Like, what the hell happened with that? So
Well, as a kid who was pushed a lot, and it seems like a lot was required of you, what did your parents say when they're
yeah.
getting the call? Hey, your son just jacked a kid in class.
Uh well, it happened in the hallway. But then they heard the story, and that time they weren't even mad at all. They were like,
You're-
I mean, I think my dad was thinking like I'd probably do the same thing too.
yeah,
Like,
you're defending
like
yourself.
yeah, you take because I was like, Mom, Dad, I tasted the Sharpie. It was the abs like don't do it. It's horrible.
Now, when you say you were bullied in school, like, did people know what you
Light,
did? Oh, light bulb.
it wasn't like I would say I was like the outcast.
Because
Um,
why? Why do you feel like you're the outcast?
I just didn't really talk. I was there to like junior year and onward. I was literally just it was like a chore. Like I was just getting it done so I could go home and play.
And you didn't have any buddies in school that played Call of Duty or knew what you did, and
Not, I mean, this was at the time when again it was like video games were not cool. So everything like, pre-COVID, it was video games are not cool before COVID. COVID hit, and then video games like, oh, you're not playing, Warzone or Call of Duty, like that's pretty lame, dude. But before then, it was not really socially acceptable.
see, like, I grew up playing games, but I was able to find like a bubble of friends in high school, like from totally different,
Yeah.
groups. And we play, but we
Yeah.
didn't really talk about it because it's like you didn't want to,
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So I'd still play with like Some people, but we didn't really talk about it or like,
You just kind of look
you
at each
know,
other in the hallway and be like,
yeah, yeah, we sort of hid the fact that like, hey, we're good, or hey, that was a crazy match last night, or this and that. But
but
yeah, no,
but so you were just like, okay, I'm here to just like, it's for you, it's like a chore. Let me get in, get out. And
yeah,
then, like, at any point though, did you,
like I didn't go to parties or I didn't even go to like a prom. Like I didn't do. I was literally at school, left school, like as fast as possible.
did
So
your parents ever say anything to you that are like, hey, like, are you going to go to a dance or you're going to hang out with some friends?
nope,
They just,
they didn't.
they just-
Yeah, they didn't care about any of that. Um, they're like, okay, grades are good, you can play.
okay.
You know,
All right, so you set up your life in high school so that you tee things up so your senior year, second semester, you can kind of know life it. So as you're
yeah.
know lifing it, is your plan then? When did you graduate? When did you graduate?
That's a good question.
Like,
I don't even
did you
remember.
walk with everyone, or did you like graduate in the wind?
Yeah, no, I still did. I That was like the one thing I did do. Um, yeah, it's actually crazy to think about. I didn't go to a single party, like high school party, not one.
So you didn't hang out with anyone, nothing.
No, it was like junior year was sort of the year where I was like, yeah, this whole friends stuff, like I don't know, it's not as fun as my friends on the toy. So
So for you, when did you start? Like, what did you have like your first like going out experience? Was that because of a Call of Duty event?
yeah, literally,
When was that?
yeah, that was like when I was 21, obviously. Because I even carried that same like get in, get out mentality. Even I did college for 2 years.
Why did you do like? Did you have to do
Oh,
college?
yeah, 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 yeah. Parents made me.
So did you make a? What did you decide to
I mean,
college?
I sort of knew I should.
Where did you pick to go to college in a way that you could set it up so that you could continue to grind, or how do you remember how you set that up?
A little bit. I knew I was like, why? I was like, I knew I should go to college, but at the same time, I was like, even getting even better at video games. This is when I was actually like a pro in Halo. Um, and I knew I was like, hey, I'm really like I'm, one of the best 50 players in the world right now at Halo. And I know there's like that was when they were getting, their faces and their team printed on Dr. Pepper bottles and all that stuff. And I was like, what am I going to college for? Like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I know I sort of want to do stuff around video games. And so I was just sort of like, I don't know how to explain it, but like trying to figure out what I wanted to do while I was taking classes in college. I was sort of just giving my parents a vibe like, hey, this is sort of a waste of time because the thing that I'm actually really good at right now and the thing that I want to do isn't at college. So why am I going?
And then after you said after 2 years, then you're able to walk. How did you pull that off? Like leave college?
Um, well, my parents were charging me rent.
Okay.
So as long as I paid the rent, that was when they were getting annoyed. With
What do you mean?
okay. So so then after Halo, I went back to Call of Duty. Um, and I was working like Sports Authority, uh, just to pay the bills for the rent.
Hmm.
And then this is when I was also like came back to COD and immediately was on a top team. Got like a chance from someone that I used to know uh, when I was a pro in Call of Duty, and I basically just jumped the ladder with that straight back to the top. And I think we kept getting like fourth, and then this is when there was actually money in play. Like the world championship was $100,000 each,
Hmm.
and I'm just back then my parents charged me like $500-600 a month, right? I'm thinking simple math here. That's a lot of years I can just slum it, just be a bum at home. Um, so we got fourth, and I was like still 25,000. But then I looked at who won and how they won, and they didn't go to school. They didn't really have jobs. It was like 100% of their effort was dedicated to just be the best, or try to, be the best team possible, be the best individuals possible. And that was sort of when we had like a team meeting, and it was like, hey, this is on complexity before we, you know, had a huge run of events that we won. I was like, hey, look at how these guys won. We know we're better than them, but we have way more talent, but they put in so much more effort. Like maybe we should do the same. And
And I feel
go
like
ahead.
that's the first time that I saw you. Like I've only seen you in person once, but I think it was
Yeah.
PAX East 2013. And I was doing
Mhm.
something for Turtle Beach and you were like
Oh God.
competing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you stood out. I'm like, because you're playing, everyone, like, I think it was like a full team. You guys are competing against whatever it was. You stood out because you were always so fired up. You're always so animated. And like,
Yeah.
I was like, dude, who is this dude? And this was back in, like I said, 2013. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever's going on, like, he's on
You
something.
well, that event, I had a minor concussion.
What was that event? I remember, like, were you playing against
No, it
normal
was
people?
Boston. It was Boston. No, those are like pro teams too, but that was the event where I was
Hold
I
on,
was a little
this
bit.
was this E3 or PAX 2013?
Oh,
It
well,
might have been
if it was the
E3
E,
2013.
it sounds like it was the E3.
Yeah.
That was when we were just paid to basically show up and look good and put on a show.
Yeah.
Um yeah, the Boston one, that was a tournament where I actually, Thursday night, I I was like 22. This was like the third time that I was ever drunk. And Thursday night I fell in my buddy's bathtub. I realize that sounds weird, but we were all in the room just like drinking whatever, and drank too much, fell and hit the back of my head. And I had a bruise like this on the back of my skull. And I knew like something wasn't right because I got to the event the next day, and all, PAX events, right? There's a lot of noises, there's a lot of lights. And I remember I was 30 seconds in there and I was like looking at my teammates like, I have a really, really bad headache. And but we still ended up winning that event. I don't know how.
So, okay, so here you are. So you're in the middle of it, you're in the thick of it. You're starting
Yeah.
to compete. When did it go from like, okay, a fun hobby to like professional where you're making some money where you can afford to stay at your parents' house to like, okay, now I'm competing for, like, this is serious. Like, this is real life money.
Um, I don't know. See, there was never really a switch that flipped
Mhm.
in my mind until it was like way later on. Um, when we started getting like, more money than we really knew what to do with. But I was just having a blast. The first salary I ever had was like $500, which is, I mean, well, first contract I ever signed, it was zero,
Okay.
obviously. But the first like paid salary was like $500. And the salaries never really went up, but the moment, or for a while, but the moment they started to jump, then I was like, hey, we're getting paid just to basically exist right now.
It,
Like we're not even getting paid for results. So it almost felt weird to me
what was
because I
your requirement of that salary when like you started to get paid a little more?
just compete.
That's it.
Just like, hey, you climb the way to the top. You got to do content. You got to, do what we ask in terms of like sponsorship requests. But other than that, there was no like, hey, if you get top 12, you don't get paid this month. There was nothing like that.
Did you have
Um,
sponsorships on top of the salary? It was the salary all inclusive. Like, this is what you're making regardless.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah. So it was like, I mean, this was way back in the day when it was so pro org and there was like no player safeguards.
What do you mean by
Uh,
safeguards?
like, for example, us as a team, four people, 1,500 or just five, let's say 500, right? 500. So that's $2,000 a month. The org was probably getting $15,000 a month.
Okay.
Like an absurd amount just for like one sponsor,
Yeah.
or
And
I
you
mean, that
and you
might
wouldn't
be
see it.
stretching it.
And you, but
I
you would see your 500 and that was it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm just throwing out numbers here. I'm just guessing. I have no idea. And they kept that like, and they still do nowadays too. They keep those numbers safeguarded. Like they'll never tell you that.
Oh, so when you say safeguard, this is the environment that players still exist in today, where they get their.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, a player will never know how much a sponsor pays for the name on a jersey or something like that. So,
Okay.
which I mean, that's just the way the world works. I don't even see the thing is like if I was in their shoes, I would do the same thing because how's an 18-year-old going to understand who only knows Call of Duty? How's he going to know where the budget's going?
But
You know,
for any, so you're part of a team, you're getting your
Yeah.
salary. Would companies ever reach out to you direct and be like, "Hey, Crim, we want you to do X, Y, or Z, and we'll pay you this on the side"?
I mean, there was definitely a point where that started happening. It wasn't until like I don't know 2015, 2016.
Mhm.
So,
And then did you have to filter that through whatever team you were on at the time, or were you able to negotiate?
yeah,
You had to
yeah,
as part of your contract.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, I remember one of the things we had to do was Rainbow Six Siege. We got in a lot of trouble because it's Activision Call of Duty, right?
Mhm.
And then we were supposed to go to play test, develop, and help develop Rainbow Six Siege.
Mhm.
So Activision wasn't really happy about that, but we were stuck in a difficult spot because our organization was getting paid at the same time and we were getting paid too. So it was like a win-win, but it was like us as players weren't told that, hey, if we do this, Call of Duty is going to be mad at us for a while. So we were sort of like, you have to go, and we had no idea the repercussions till after.
And what
But we were just thinking, cool, pay, or like we're getting paid to do this. And then we found out, hey, they're not happy at us.
what were the
with the
repercussions? What ended up happening?
we just really couldn't do like we couldn't play or test any of the Call of Duties for like a year or two. Um, like the pre-release versions.
And
So
as a,
it wasn't bad.
did that put you behind the eight ball for tournaments and things like that?
A little bit, a little bit.
Okay.
I would say at the start of the year, like we're sort of behind because that was our first time playing the game.
So you said there reached a point when you were making like kind of more money than you knew what to do with. What did that look like for you? Was it salary, sponsorships? Were you not on a team? When did that start to happen for you?
Um, I would probably say, I don't know, probably when I joined Optic, and also the year before, because that's when the money started going up and up. And that was especially with Optic, because the thing was, it was like, hey, this is the first time since I was 17. Because the moment I turned 18, my parents were charging me for rent. So from 18 all the way to like 24, 23, I think it was, I don't know when it was. I was paying rent and then joined Optic and lived in a team house. And all of a sudden, I don't have to pay rent. I don't have to pay utilities. I don't have to pay anything. So it was, it's like, hey, I got a lot of money right now. And then that's when I sort of bought my first performance car. I went from a hand-me-down Volkswagen Jetta to an M4. So
So when you got the offer and you're living in this content house, what did you tell your parents? Like you're like, hey, this is real now. Like, is there a moment when they like understood like this is a real career and this is really happening?
well, the first one happened the first time I moved away from my parents actually happened with a team called Evil Geniuses.
Mhm.
Moved to San Francisco, and I didn't stay there long.
Why not?
Well, I was sharing a room, and then that was sort of when the complexity team was falling apart. It's totally super complicated.
Okay.
Um, basically, we were promised a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and we just kept getting delayed. Like, we'll talk about it next month. We'll talk about it next month. We'll talk, and for like 11 months, 10 months, and then we all sort of went our separate ways. And then I ended up leaving that EG house. I was the only one there from the team, and moved back. And then that's when I joined Optic, which was Seattle or San Francisco. That's, a 1 or 2 day drive. Seattle to Chicago for Optic, like I didn't drive that. That's not a close move whatsoever. So that one was definitely way more serious.
For you, what was the adjustment like? Because you talked about kind of no lifing it. Like you didn't go to parties, you didn't go to dances, and then now you're in this house with like a bunch of, like, I guess, friends and competitors and teammates. Like, how did you have any difficulty adjusting to that, coming from such, I wouldn't say isolated, but from such a like solo competitive life prior to that?
Not really, because everyone in the team houses sort of shared the same passion that I did, and the same subject of passion, I should say. And yeah, it felt like these people are a lot like me, both in the EG house and then the Optic house as well. Um, so yeah, it was not like in real life where it was like, hey, I can't talk about the thing
That you,
that I like all the
that
yeah.
you care about
So
most. I got it. So for
yeah.
like the normal person, normie, who will never experience what it's like to compete on the levels you have,
Yeah.
like when you're in the thick of it and it's like a game or two goes either way, decides who's winning, what is that like for you? Are you locked in? Do you see nothing else? What is that experience like, who's someone who's competed at
Um
that level?
so if you're thinking about that stuff or noticing that stuff or realizing what is happening outside of just your screen, you're probably losing or you're about to lose. Uh Whenever I've, been winning, it's the only thing I'm really looking at or noticing or thinking about is the screen in front of me. Um, I remember that it was, there's a couple tournaments whereas when you're playing in front of, 4 or 5,000 people. Um, like the biggest sort of moment where I knew like, hey, I'll never really get nervous again was ESWC, so Paris Games Week in France, Paris, France. Um, there was about 4 or 5,000 people. Keep in mind, this was like I had just won my first tournament 4 or 5 months ago before that moment, and then we're playing it, on that stage. And at the time, that was bigger than any COD champs. That was like exponentially more people watching than any other tournament. And we're playing against Gotaga in the finals, who is like, that guy's huge now, but he was huge back then. And I remember like doing this over the top of my monitor, and I didn't see like I just saw heads all the way back. Um, there was like, a grid system of seats, and then there's the aisles, and people were sitting in the middle of the aisles. And then on the ends, it was like lined with people. And then, it was surreal because the tournament before we were playing in like a hotel convention hall with maybe 1,000 people there, and only 300 were actually watching our match. So that was like a huge moment where I'd say everyone on our team, Complexity, and Gotaga's team, I think it was Vitality, like we got an experience, or we got to get this experience that no one else was going to have until like years down the road. So,
And for you, like, you remember looking at that, and then were you like, whoa, or you just like snapshotted it? Were you nervous at that time, or you just felt like things were going to be different?
I would say it wasn't. See, we were sort of we were blessed in that scenario because there was sort of like the NA side of the North American side of the bracket,
Hmm.
and then there was the European side. And we knew whoever won the semifinals was going to win the tournament because we were just at the time the level of competition in North America is way higher. So it was like right when I think it was like Envy or something where we beat them, and then or no, it was, I don't know how the whole structure worked, but all I knew was like we knew we were playing Vitality. We knew they weren't as good as whoever wins the semifinal match on our side of the bracket. So we were going to play in front of thousands of people. So that's a little bit nerve wracking, but we knew the team we were playing against had no chance of beating us. So it was like, the actual match and the actual competition, our opponent didn't make us nervous at all, but all the fans there watching sort of did.
Got it. So that was the battle you had to like fight within was the crowd and not necessarily who you're going against. So when you go toe to toe with some of these teams, and we've all seen like Call of Duty clips when teams are going at it. When the game's over, because it's a lot of fire, trash talking, like it's intense. When the games are over, will you guys like hang out, shake hands, or are there some relationships where it was like, nah, like
I would say that's a tough one. I would say it's like lighthearted trash talk.
Okay.
Like in the moment they might be pissed, but there's like no one's really ever that pissed at the pro level. Amateur level, completely different story. I've seen some wild stuff there.
Anything you want? Like, what's the wildest thing you've seen at like the amateur level?
Oh, I can't talk about. I mean, you stop the recording, I'll tell you. I mean, I think it was like my first ever Call of Duty LAN. I'll put this in perspective.
Okay.
So I ended up being friends with this guy. His name was Huddle. Ended up being friends with him. All this stuff. Like we were cool. We'd always trash talk each other. Thing is sort of funny, right? And we get there in person, and I'm like, Huddle, you suck. Yada yada. He's like, no, you suck. And then I see his I saw his dad watching, and I pointed to his dad and I said, sir, your son is terrible, or something like that. And then his dad started trash talking me, but like Huddle was sitting there laughing about it. Like he thought it was funny, but then his dad was furious at me. And this was back, when I was pretty young then too. And he was young as well. But we were like laughing about it. My teammates are looking at me like, dude, you're about to get your ass beat by a dad. But then me and Huddle, laughed it off like, hey, you remember that the one time when your dad almost, beat the shit out of me, stuff like that. So it seems serious. But it's really not. Like moments after.
You guys like all part of the same fraternity. You're not like gonna go like throw fists and things like that. So couple more questions before we pivot to your second careers. You've moved teams like a decent amount. When you've had to make those decisions to go from team to team, you touched a little bit on EG. It sounded like things just kind of, you saw the writing on the wall. But when you move from team to team, what is that process like, and what is that decision for you back then?
Back then, it was, who's really good at the time. But I sort of had something that other players didn't, was I didn't really care about the player you were at that specific time. I cared about the player you could become. So it was like, before I went to, I played for like 12 years. I don't know what it was, but I probably did the least amount of team changes besides like Scump with Optic, which he is Optic, But outside of that, it was like I only had 5 teams and like 20 teammates in like 10 plus years. So I sort of valued like, hey, is this individual's ability to improve, is that good or bad, or is that high or low right now?
And how would you gauge that? How did you know?
Just their work ethic. If someone was like, saying stuff like, if you try hard, you're a loser, or like you're not cool. Like literally, because keep in mind, this is again back in the day when video games weren't cool. So, trying hard at something that isn't cool might, in some people's eyes, that will be like, you're a loser. I'm like, you're a loser if you spend 3 hours plus a day and you're not trying, like you are wasting your time, and you're an easy win for me. So anyone like that had that mindset of like it's not cool to go hard at this, like get away from me. Like I don't want to be friends with you. I don't want to talk to you. I definitely don't want to team with you. But anyone sort of that shared that same mindset as of me is like, hey, let's go 110% in every single moment. Even when we're not playing, let's be thinking about ways we can get better, improve. That's who I wanted to play with.
So let me ask this: as you kind of, you had so much success, the winningest Call of Duty player of all time. When did you know, like, hey, this is it for me? Like, it's time to shut it down. It's time to go away.
Yeah, that's an easy one. So in COVID, uh, second year of COVID, first year was all online. It all went to online play. Everyone just stayed at home. Second year was when as restrictions sort of started opening up, especially in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So all the majors, like we do league play online, so like your standard regular season, but then the actual tournaments themselves we'd play in person with no fans, nothing. It was just a stage. Everyone had to have a COVID vaccine. Everyone had to wear masks when they're not playing. But they were all in Dallas. So I had a Porsche GT3 RS that I would drive to that studio. And let's just say this, I had more fun driving there than I did playing in the matches that I was competing for tens of thousands of dollars for. So I was like, that is the stupid. In my head, I'm like, this is a real issue because driving there, I'm making nothing, but playing, I'm making a lot. And yet I'm having way more fun in the 30 minutes than I am in the, couple hours worth of play.
And so for you, I mean, because I imagine to compete at that level, you have to be you have to be obsessed with it. So
Yeah, exactly.
when did that, like, I mean, you had done so much, you'd won so much.
Yep.
When did that light? I mean, I know you said that's the moment, but did it dim over time, or was it just like that car ride? You're like, this is it.
Yeah, I mean, see the thing like before that, I would do track days and I would play like racing games late at night to sort of get away from Call of Duty or to like de-stress. Usually the track day like weekends, I would leave my phone in like a bag and like not even look at it for the whole day or the whole weekend just to get away from it. So that was sort of when I was like, hey, I kind of want to do this. And when I retired, I actually that was one of the two things that I was like, hey, I could probably try to go pro in racing. But I knew in the back of my head, like that is the most absurd, most extreme goal. That it's very unlikely to happen. And I knew that. So
you're walking away from this sport that's, you've won a ton of money, made a successful career, the best to ever do it. How much could you still say that you still loved it? Could you still be doing that right now?
no.
Okay. Why not?
No way.
It's just,
Well, can't really feel my left thumb.
okay.
So I can with my right thumb, right? Like going down and up is fine. But going up, like going down on my left thumb is no issue.
Okay.
But going back up, it feels like it doesn't feel great.
Okay.
It doesn't so it's not pain, but it's something way past that where it's just numb.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
So that's when I was like, hey, I gotta stop using this damn controller.
I get it. No,
Because my sprint clicking days are kind of over.
okay. So then was there, before you make this jump or you start to make your second career a reality, is there any part of you thinking like, okay, like I'm making tremendous money in this arena? Like, were you concerned that you're leaving this to start at the bottom of a brand new world?
I mean, it didn't really go that smoothly. I went like retired, then I started doing content.
How did you like doing? Because I've saw you on Twitch, and how did you like doing
It was
content?
quite frankly, I mean, here's the thing, right? Is I probably need to start doing it again. Um, at least just as a side job, side gig. But when I was dedicating, and I think with that it won't be an issue. Um, but with the when I was doing it like full time, I remember I would just leave my streaming computer on and just rerun the 12-hour stream. So that way my stream was on 24 hours a day. And I had like 12 hours to sleep, take a break, relax, do whatever. Like there was no working out. There was no spending time with my wife. There was nothing in terms of that. It was just like, I don't know. It didn't feel right just doing the same thing every single day and just I don't know. One thing that kind of scares me with the content creation is if you're not getting viewers and you're relying on sort of donations or gifted subs and this and that, it's like a scary place to be in because I'm used to, especially with competing, I'm used to basically just brute forcing something. So like if I suck, I'll literally play all day every day until I'm good again, right? If I suck making videos and I try to do that, it won't necessarily work. You know, you won't necessarily start making good content all of a sudden. Um, so that was like a scary thought because that was, back when I retired from competing, started doing that Call of Duty content stuff, Warzone. It wasn't really going so well, which is so weird because I could go to multiplayer, get a whole bunch of viewers, go to Warzone, no one cares. So it was so weird to me because I'm like, hey, it's still Call of Duty. Just my fan base and the people who watch me throughout the years, like they don't necessarily care about Warzone like I do.
Mhm.
So it was a eye-opening experience.
And then for you, when you saw that shift, were you like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm going to go 100% into racing? Or how did that transition happen from, okay, you tried content creation, you're like, kind of scary, the tools that got me success up until this point may not work. So when did you decide, okay, I'm going to shut this down, and how did the opportunities come about to do that, to start racing?
Um, well, that was when Porsche ended up sponsoring Phase, and I was, huge Porsche fanboy at that point, or like way before that. And I was like, hey, I got to get into Phase somehow. I want to work with Porsche. And then the offer was on the table to do sim racing. And
With Phase?
yeah, with Phase. And like this is high level sim racing. This is like keep in mind, like sim racing and racing in general, being able to turn a wheel left and right is not the skill. Is not the skill. The skill comes from your feet. Okay, that's where all the technique is. That's where all the knowledge is. That's where all the actual difficult stuff is. It comes from like manipulating the pedals. And I was, I didn't use my legs for 20 years. I was just sitting down doing nothing. So I had to learn like left foot coordination. I had to literally restructure my knees because I had like that, like this would be
Yeah.
duck foot. I had the opposite,
You had it.
and I needed my legs to be like this. So I needed my feet to be parallel in order to go like brake throttle like that.
So what did you do?
So
Did
it
you like hip hold
oh
up?
it was yeah. Well, that's the cool thing about Call of Duty is everyone plays Call of Duty. So there's a couple guys, I'm not gonna name names, um, that were in the military, and I immediately reached out to them like, "Hey, I need my feet to be parallel. they're like this right now, you know, how do I do this? And they gave me a whole bunch of workouts and that stuff. So
They gave you these workouts and then you just went ham on them.
yeah, yeah.
And then how long did it take?
And then all of a sudden I woke up like 4 months later, my feet were like this. So yeah, it's like, hey, it work. So yeah, but then professional sim racing happened, and I was absolutely terrible. Absolutely, like I was a laughing stock. Like the interview was actually kind of hilarious because of how bad I was. The race was over. They were celebrating all this stuff. I'm sitting there still driving. Like I still got one more lap to do. Interviewer comes over and like, and he actually got crap for this, but I was glad he came over. But he was, how was your first race? I'm like, sir, I'm still driving. Like, and he had this mic, like right where my wheel was, and I'm like, sir, I need a turn. I need a turn. And it was, at least we made a joke about it, and at least I could look back at that and laugh about it, because if I was just driving alone in silence while everyone's like already putting their shoes back on, like getting off the stage, like it's all quiet, and I'm still sitting there like, all right, two more corners. That would have been bad. But yeah, that was in Poland. So I flew across the world to just get absolutely slaughtered.
And that had to be motivating for you, because like if you're doing like physical exercises for military personnel to get your legs straight, you go out and you get smashed. Like,
yeah,
and you're used to championships and
well,
winning.
it's all yeah. See, it was like I knew I was gonna be bad. I mean, this is a funny story. FaZe, they didn't even tell me there was a prize pool because they knew I was gonna be terrible. I was like, wait, there's a 250,000. There was like a 250,000 for team, and then 250,000 for individual, or some. It was something crazy. I was like, wait, there's a prize pool,
And they're like,
and then
"Don't worry."
and then like I think one of the camera guys, he was like Max or something. Like me and him were buddies, but clearly it was like I was the American that spoke too much. He just looked at me, he's like, "You're not gonna win that. You're not gonna get a dime." And I was like, "Shit, you're probably right, dude. I'm still in Poland though. Like that's pretty cool." Um, but yeah, I mean, I would say even now I've improved drastically, but the level of those guys is absurd. Absolutely absurd. Like it's sim racing is close with the knowledge, right? Believe it or not, knowledge is sort of how you gain speed. It's like half the battle of understanding, like, hey, I need to pivot the car like exactly 13 degrees to the left rather than 14 or 12. Like just being able to be that precise requires knowledge. And yeah, so I'm still learning, and I'm like 2 years into it. So
Okay, so you're still working on that, and then now, and you have to explain. So now you're in the Porsche Sprint Series, like
yeah,
not simulated racing,
yeah,
real life racing. Racing. How did
yeah.
that happen?
That's the part where you're getting the first inside scoop. This is actually really cool because I got this whole opportunity in this whole position. Like it wasn't like FaZe got it for me or like Porsche got it for me. It was all pretty much like my buddy who was doing data coaching for them told me, "Hey, come out to this track day in Austin at Coda. You really got to meet these people." And I was like, "All right, like we'll do it. Let's like." And this was at a time when I was like, money was getting tight. The whole content stuff, like sim racing content, is very difficult. This is like this was only what 8 months ago, 9 months ago, and I was like, all right, I'll swing by. Like this is gonna cost an arm and a leg because it was Coda, an F1 track. And anyways, met the whole RAFA Racing family, and sort of just was having fun on a track day and just trying to drive as fast as possible. I never really even timed my laps because again, it was my piece from Call of Duty. So I didn't know if I was slow or fast. I just knew I sucked on the sim compared to the best in the world. But I was actually putting up some good times, and then they kept I think there was another one, and then they started like inviting me to the stuff that they were doing. One of the track days they were having on, it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we got to drive all those days at Coda. Second time at Coda with them. And the first day was dedicated to the female only sprint shootout, where they had, I think it was like 12 women from all over the world. Only one would get selected to get a seat for the actual car next year, that I'm competing against right now. But I was, talking to Rafa about it. I was like, "Hey, what's all the plans for next year?" And he sort of hinted like, Paige is going to be in one of the cars. Whoever wins the women's sprint shootout is going to be in another one. Um, and then we have one car where we don't know what we're going to do with. And I just sort of, my eyes lit up, and I was like, "Dude, I will do anything." I was like, "I will literally do anything." I'm like, I'll go work out. I'll lose all this weight. I'll put in all this time. And I keep in mind, I was still doing sim racing professionally. Um, and I think that all those factors definitely helped me out. Um, the fact that I used to be a Call of Duty pro, I had a huge following. I was doing sim racing professionally. Granted, I wasn't good. Um, Quite frankly, what really spoke out to me was their motto that they had branded on the cars, the trailers, like everything, and it was the motto of "Winners Wanted," and that sort of spoke to me a whole lot because I was like, "Hey, that's like that's
That's what
me.
you do.
That's
That's
where,
your whole
yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah, exactly." So, um,
When you say you had to lose weight, what
yeah,
so how much did you weigh, and what should someone who's in one of these Porsche cars, what should they weigh? Because I'm guessing it's all part of the equation of how fast you can go, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah. So around 22 pounds, 10 kilograms is worth like a tenth of a second
Oh,
on a lap. Yeah, and the average, like at least at the pro level, and keep in mind, like where technically we're not pro level.
Mhm.
Um, those guys are around 180
Okay.
pounds. And the moment when I, pitched that to Raphael, I was like 256 pounds. Um, and that was in October. And right now it is March, and I'm 210. So I've lost 46 pounds. I still got 30 pounds to go.
Congratulations. When you
Yeah.
pitched him and you're like, "Hey, like what do I need to do?"
It
What did he say?
it it was it wasn't even like a pitch. It was just like almost like a shot in the dark. Like it was like just, friends talking, and I was like, "Hey man, I'll do anything." Because at this point, it was like sim racing I was horrible at. The Call of Duty Warzone content wasn't taking off like how I wanted it to take off. Um it was I mean, at the end of the day, this is like it was a huge moment, just this opportunity alone. Um, just for the direction that I was going. Like now I feel like I have purpose again.
What so when you took the shot in the dark, was he looked at you like you're crazy? Or is he like,
Um, no. I think that, I mean, he had seen some of my driving and stuff before, and I was posting a whole bunch of content from the actual track days that we did. And I mean, I don't, to this day, it's surreal to me. I don't even know how to describe it, because this is something like what I just got, and what I'm this whole opportunity that's happening right now is not something people get. Like it is not even remotely close. There might be, it's am sort of still learning the whole motorsport space. So I don't know like what's the ratio of like, hey, how many drivers got this opportunity that I just got? I have no idea.
And
All I know is it doesn't really
when
happen.
you say this opportunity for someone who's listening right now is like has no idea, like so now
Yeah.
that you're with, Rafa,
So
what does that
yeah.
mean?
So I'll break it down like this. Most people get in because they've either started like the whole motorsport life, started from karting when they were like 5 years old. And that's just all they sort of know. So they're like, drivers from the day that they can, you know, think about this. They're professionally karting like 11 years before they even get their license, or
What
like
does
like they're
karting mean?
actually
What is karting?
like go-karting.
Okay, I gotcha.
Like I'm not saying they're pro level at 5,
Yeah.
but I'm saying they're driving a motor vehicle 11 years before they can even get their driver's license. So think about in that time frame, they have 11 years of automotive and racing knowledge before most people even drive for the first time. So by the time they're like 18 or 20, they really know what they're doing. So like for your average person who starts driving their first car at 16, when you're at 30 years old, you're gonna have a whole bunch of like driving knowledge. Like they'll actually have that at like 18. So like it's something crazy to think about. And then that's one way. The other way is like, you it motorsport is very expensive. Um, I quite frankly am sort of scared to ask how much is like one weekend of doing this at this level, because I knew from my GT3 RS how expensive that was. And I'm like, I cannot even imagine how expensive it is to like trailer the cars on a massive semi across the country. You have a whole entire pit crew. Um, you have like 20 to 30 people that you have to pay travel for. You have the insurance on the cars, that's like health insurance as well, which think about your racing cars very quickly against other cars. Like that health insurance bill has got to be insane. Then you have the car insurance too, which they probably group those two in. But I'm willing to bet that running our car is around 350 to 300,000. Um, and I'm willing to bet the insurance for that, just for these races, is the same amount, or maybe it's probably not. I have no idea, but all I know is it's probably over six figures. So, and that's just like something to keep in mind. We're at I would say the entry level for the serious level.
Okay.
Um, all the high end like endurance team, like to race at Le Mans, um, with those guys, I heard it's just like millions for like just driving for 24 hours is millions.
So you're on this team now. What does that mean for you as like as what you do now for your day to day?
Yeah, it's weird. Oh, it's really it's kind of like I'll get in an Uber, like, oh, what do you do for a living? In my head, I'm like, I think I'm a race car driver now. I was like, sorry, sir, that it's true. It was just the first time I ever said it, and it's just weird to say like that. Usually, I'm not. Usually, I'm saying pro Call of Duty, pro video game player. They're like, oh, cool. Like my son plays this and that.
Fortnite, yeah.
But yeah. But saying like I'm a race car driver for the first time was like, whoa, like this is crazy. Um, yeah, but
So what does that
I
what
don't know.
does that mean though? What do you do on a daily
So
basis now that you're a race car driver?
so right now it's let's see, it's 3:30 p.m. So I've already worked out once. I was on the sim behind me for a little bit. Uh, walked the dogs, ate healthy, rested a little bit, and then right after we're done with this, I'm about to go work out again, and then also hop back on the sim.
Okay.
So that's pretty much like all I'm doing right now.
And what are your requirements, or what have they told you? Like, hey, this is what we expect you to do. This is where we see you. Like, what are, with Call of Duty, you've always had like self expectations. You
Yeah.
knew what you had to do. You knew the structure. What is that like for you now?
Um, that's a good question. I would say that, obviously keep posting, doing social media content. Um, the sort of where I'm thinking I need to multitask that as well as like, hey, I need to prep for my next race, which did not go so well. Like the first practice that we had, so we actually flew out to Alabama, had 2 or 3 days of practice, and I was just terrible. Not terrible by my standards. I was still probably a second fastest. Um, it just didn't go as smoothly as the location of the first track. So this next round that's coming up at the end of April, like I've actually been putting in way more time on the sim, which is basically 1-to-1
Mm-hmm.
with real life. Um, it's going to be a real test for me because I sort of have that mental note of like, hey, it did not go well. Um, so I need to work even harder.
And this series you're competing in, what is that? Because you said it's professional, but it's like the entry level professional. What does that mean? If
Yeah.
someone has no idea what.
I would say that means sort of the like it's almost like I'm speaking in monetary terms. So like of financial value.
Mhm.
Like the serious level I would say is like it costs a lot of money to run in these. I think like which something that's crazy is like they run Miata races, right? Where their skill level of drivers is extremely high, but running a Miata for like, a Mazda Miata or street car is like maybe what 20,000 or less. Um, and the race car is only like 30,000. That's probably not true. I have no idea what it is, but it's more than the street car. But a Mazda Miata might cost like a lot of money to run just over the weekend, like just as much as
Mhm.
ours would. Um, so it's hard to describe. It's like ours is like officially sanctioned. Um, it's like the North American. It's so hard. It's how do I describe it well? It's like there's younger drivers, everyone that's like under I think 40, and then there's a lot of older drivers too, so 40 and up.
Mhm.
So I think in our first race we had 8 people under 40 and about 12 or 13 over 40. Um, and that's sort of why I say it's like entry but serious level. And the other thing is like it's serious level because if I just wanted to go do it, try to enter this series, like they would say no. Like even if I had the car, I had the insurance, all this stuff, I would need to be approved because I had my tech team there. I had like a trailer. I had like someone with to set up all the tires. Like there's a whole bunch of regulations on the setups and all this stuff. Like it's it's way more serious than a lower tier race. And the tracks we're going on are like they're the biggest US based tracks that you can possibly drive on. There might be, I think Laguna Seca might be the only one that we're actually not going to be racing on, but we're basically driving on the most iconic tracks in North America.
So for you, you said that this has given you now a sense of purpose. You're competing again in a totally different arena, but it sounds like the tools that got you to be, a 3-time world champion, a 38-time Call of Duty champion, it's now applying to here. So for you, as you wrap things up here, what are your goals now for this opportunity with this racing team? What are you trying to accomplish and turn this into?
Uh, my goal is to win, and my goal is to win, but also like push myself to the absolute limit of not only the car but myself in general. And I want to like not just win a race, but I want to, like the first race went by and I pretty much dominated from start to finish. And the way I'm looking at it is like, hey, all these other drivers, they have, all these other reasons where they could possibly do this again. Like, if I don't show the commitment in terms of like speed and pace, as well as like social media and content, and also being a good sport, like learning from my coaches, being, very productive on everything that I do. And when it comes to racing, whether it's at home, whether it's there in person, if I'm not on my A game on everything, like I might not be able to race next year. So that's sort of my goal, is like be the absolute best you can be in everything that you're trying to do right now.
And then is there like a next step? Like say you dominate this entire league.
Yeah. It could go one of two ways. I mean, I could get moved up or I could never race again. It's incredibly complicated. And it doesn't help the fact that I'm over 30. So I'm not in like a junior program. Like I couldn't win the junior sponsorship or anything like that. So the odds are sort of stacked against me, but at the same time, I'm like, hey, my pace and my speed is up there. So quite frankly, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm trying to put myself in the absolute best spot, do my best. And hey, if it's like, if I end up, winning the season, the championship, and I end up never being able to race again, then I'll be like, yeah, that really sucks, and I'll be absolutely bummed. But at the same time, it's like, hey, I'll have an opportunity that no one else really gets. So it's a weird spot. I mean, thinking about what happens next is sort of so far down the road to me, that I'm trying not to really think about it. I'm just trying to think about the next round, winning the next round of the championship.
Well, if there's a way to place a bet on how I think you're going to finish, and I think anyone listening to this and knows what you've done, I think a lot of people would be betting on you. But Crim, as we wrap this up, how do people now? What's the best way to follow you in this racing journey and what you have going on now?
Yeah, so I'm posting a lot of reels and images, whatever, on my socials. Instagram is Ian Crimsix. That's sort of the main one where I'm posting a lot of stuff. Twitter as well, just Crimsix. I'm working on getting like an individual editor and cameraman out to these races, but the biggest thing should be happening by the end of the season or afterwards, which I can't really talk about. Okay. Once you turn off this recording, I'll tell you. But yeah, let's just say there's a lot more planned, but can't really speak on the matter.
All right, and if people want to support you at these races, when's your next race coming up, and how do people, like, if someone wants to watch you race, what's the best way to find that information?
So it's, I believe it's PorscheSprint.com. Let me just PorscheSprint.com. It's got everything from North American season, 23 days, 8 hours, 25 minutes, 55 seconds. It's got all the standings. It's got the NA region, US West region, all the different cars. Anyways, check them out. Check that site out. The next race is at Barber, which is in Birmingham, Alabama. And we're actually I'll say this in like UFC fight terms. We're like the prelims for IndyCar.
Okay.
So we're like the warm-up races before the actual IndyCar race. So it's going to be absolutely packed. There's going to be a lot of people. So I'm excited for that.
That's awesome.
But that is what is it? April 26th through 28th.
Awesome. Well, Crim, appreciate you taking all this time up. It's been an amazing ride to hear. Like you've already lived, it feels like 2 lifetimes, and now you're starting your third career. But I'll definitely be rooting you on and excited to see how you compete in this next competitive journey of your life. And just appreciate you taking time to come on the podcast, man.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was great to be here. Hopefully, keep getting some results.